All right, so as we get more people started here, I'll just go over some general housekeeping. And this is also for everybody watching on YouTube because I know we're getting a lot of action there, as well as people that are inside of our school community. So, welcome everybody. This is our Thursday Agency Accelerator call where we help AI agencies focus on the other side of this business. So, on our Tuesday, on our Tuesday and our daily support calls, we really focus in on how to use the Stammer AI platform and how to build AI agents. Today's call is more about the other side of that business, which is selling AI agents and how to manage and grow your agency from more of like a business perspective. So, in the last couple of weeks, we've gone over a lot of different concepts, mainly stemming from some of these general tutorials. And of course, everything that we mentioned in today will be linked inside of the school community, and there will be a link down below so you can get access to all of these mind maps. We first started about, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, where we started off talking about how to generate clients for your agency. And this is kind of the middle part that a lot of people typically ask, especially if you're just getting started with running your AI agency. How do you generate clients? How do you find clients? And just as a quick recap, one of the best ways that we always like to tell people to get started for free and for the best kind of ROI that you can get is just simply go through your existing network. Typically, people have some sort of background or connections with business owners. And this is a really great way to start because you can offer this for free initially to get a review or to get some sort of traction initially, which you can then leverage to do other outbound methods like cold email, cold calling, which is always available and always a great way. And then of course, looking towards organic content creation and paid ads and partnerships and things like that, where you can really start to expand your reach and get in front of a lot of different clients. Now, on top of all of this, when we say cold email, cold call, and kind of these general concepts, then the question typically becomes, well, how do we find out people to cold email or to cold call? And one of the methods that we've been seeing a lot lately is agencies will use platforms like BuiltWith or SimilarWeb. And these are two great websites. Interesting. That looks like a fake ad. Interesting. Anyway, SimilarWeb and BuiltWith are two places that you can go to look for websites that have or use certain technologies. So, for example, with BuiltWith, you could search for websites that are all built on Shopify or websites that are built on WordPress. And typically, these websites might not have an existing AI chatbot on their website. So, this is a great way to kind of scrape a bunch of different websites that have or don't have access to this technology yet. And that's a great way to sell them on this service as an AI agency. Vice versa, if they also are using an existing technology or platform like Intercom, you can do kind of the same thing. So these are two great tools that are either free or very cheap to use. So this is definitely a great way to generate a bunch of leads that you can then use inside of outbound your outbound sales. And so that's just a recap on kind of the generating of clients. Last week we went over more about building the foundation of your agency, which goes over the how you're going to sell this as the end solution. We're not trying to sell the functionality, but we're trying to sell the benefits. So how is this going to essentially do one of either two different things, which is how is it going to save a business money or how is this going to make a business more money? And these are the two ways that a lot of agencies have found a lot of success. And that kind of stems or leads into your ability to pick a niche or type of business that you want to go after. And then once you kind of figure out all of these different things, you can put it all together, like our guy Hermosi, with all of these tactics, I guess you could say, to encourage people to sell. And it's all about creating that irresistible offer by using these tactics like urgency and scarcity and things like that. All of this entire mind map is already linked inside of the school community. So if you want to go further in depth on that, feel free to go and download that. But today I wanted to talk about the third step in this cycle, which is the sales, like how to actually close a client through doing a meeting, but also how to set up and organize this entire process through what's called the sales pipeline. And for everyone watching, if this is, very familiar, then you might, you might want to just skip ahead a little bit, but there's kind of two different sides. And when you're running an agency, tracking all of your leads and your communication with your leads is very important. And so how do you do that effectively? Well, there's a couple different ways that you can do that, and there's a bunch of different examples that I've gathered here that I've personally used in the past, and some that we still use today for our own business and for my other associated agency. So when we think about a sales pipeline, typically there's going to be different stages where you have leads inside of this pipeline. And typically from a UI point of view, they're all going to work in the same way where it's called a Kanban style board where you have different cards, and then as a lead goes through the process of becoming more familiar with you and your agency, they go into the next column and the next steps. So this not only allows you to keep track and organize all of your leads, but it also allows you to see visually where most of your leads are at and which stage of the funnel and the pipeline they're in. And so right here, we're using a platform called Miro to make all of these mind maps and things. And it's interesting because they've now added a bunch of functionality like the ability to do a similar Kanban style within their existing infrastructure. This is not typically one that I would recommend for running something like this. However, I just wanted to, show it as a, way so that you guys can visualize it. Typically, there's going to be a couple of different ways that you can do that. There's unlimited platforms out there that you could do to use this, but some of them that are most common, Notion, Trello, even Google Sheets, Miro, as I just displayed, and then of course a CRM. And for our example and intents and purposes, we use Go High Level, GHL. And so I can show you kind of quickly what each of those might look like. So inside something like Trello, it's the exact same thing. So if I was to make a new lead, this one doesn't have as much built out as it does with, tracking specific fields and things like that. But the idea here is as you start talking with different clients, you just move them along to the different stages. And once they get into a certain stage, you can then know that they are a paying client and so on and so forth. Now, the benefit of doing it inside Trello is it's super easy and very minimal in terms of like this is pretty much their entire platform. But it leads to some other things that you might want, like automation and being able to reach out based off of which stage that they're in. And so that's why we typically like using something like GHL. And just for a quick, honorable mention, Notion is very similar to Trello in the sense that it has, again, the same style of, format or layout. And I actually use this for a lot of other different things. For example, like all of my content creation, I have a similar pipeline that I can use to track where my videos are filmed and edited and all that process. But back to GHL, back to a CRM, this is kind of where you go from the simple or beginner level to the more advanced level. And the reason why this is beneficial is because you can attach automation to these different stages. So one of the things that we like to do is when someone signs up, it will automatically create a new opportunity or a new lead, and it will put them inside of the certain column, which in this case, it could be new account created or a credit card has started, credit card trial has started. And when we're talking about AI agencies and people that are using Stammer AI as a platform, this is very similar layout with the exact columns that we've helped other agencies start using, because this kind of mimics how the platform works in the way that you as an AI agency would want to set up and start selling AI agents. So within Stammer AI, you're able to offer no credit card trials as well as credit card trials. There's all these different options of however you want to run your agency. And so having these different columns for each of these different stages within the platform is quite useful because our platform will be able to send data through webhooks, which GHL can take in and receive as data. And then through their automation, that can then dictate where these opportunities are moved to based off of the actions that are being taken. So a lot of this at scale is really going to be useful with automation because once you start getting hundreds or thousands of people that are interested in this product, automation is really the only way that you're going to be able to maintain a clean pipeline. And so for the way that we like to recommend things, especially when you're an agency that's just getting started, is the initial sales meeting is going to be one of the most important things because you're not necessarily selling, again, you're not selling the features of these AI agents. You're selling the benefits, but you're also essentially selling yourself as a agency. Now, if you're new to this space or new to running an agency in general, the bar is set pretty low in terms of what dictates a good agency. And the reason why I put that in like air quotes is because I can't tell you the amount of times that I've talked with customers who are super ecstatic and happy that we just respond to them and we, reach out to them when we have something to talk about or for example, like we basically just don't ghost them after they've started to become interested or potentially have a meeting. And so like as an agency, when you're getting on this call, like yes, you are trying to sell them on this product and service, but you're also showcasing to this potential business client that, hey, I'm someone that's trustworthy. My agency is someone that is going to be good working with your business, and we're going to be able to provide you help and support through the life cycle of the business. We're not just going to take your money and run, so to speak. And it seems like that's like oh yeah, no, like no, duh, like that's obvious, but you'd be surprised at how many people don't actually do that. And that's where, you get a lot of horror stories from businesses that are like, oh yeah, I worked with this web guy, but then I haven't heard from him in 3 years and I don't even know how to access my website or whatever it may be. So again, that bar is set extremely low, and the goal is just to essentially convince them that you're going to be around for the long term. So when we talk about these sales meeting, and Drew, I'll tap you in a minute if you want to provide kind of any other insights here. When you want to set up this system, the goal is to essentially do as little as talking as possible. And what I mean by that is when someone signs up and creates a meeting on your calendar and who's interested in learning more about AI agents, instead of trying to, show a sales deck or something like right off the bat and try to just, tell, like what I'm basically doing right now is not a good type of sales call where I'm just kind of like ranting and talking and talking and talking. The best salespeople are ones that are going to ask the most questions and essentially let the lead or that potential business do most of the talking. And the benefit of doing that is they are essentially going to convince themselves through answering your questions or the reason why they would want to sign up for the platform. And so we've put in a couple, general questions in here about how to get started. And one of the things I'll definitely mention too is if you're new to doing sales calls, and this kind of applies to really any business, it's all about repetition. If you're scared like I was many years ago, getting on calls or getting nervous or things like that, if you do, 50, 100, 200 calls, at some point you're going to realize that there's a format to this, there's a flow. You figure out your own kind of strategy on how you want to start these meetings and build that initial rapport. And then, of course, asking the questions so that way you get them talking as quickly and as early as possible. And so the reason and how this kind of connects to selling AI agents in general is to figure out where in their business that they might be missing certain things that again will help them save money or make them money. And so if we position our questions around these two concepts, we're almost kind of incepting the ideas into their head about the benefits of using AI agents with their business. So for example, if we're asking them what's been working well or what's not working well for your business, and here's how an AI agent could help resolve that issue or potentially bring in more business. That's going to be something that they quickly identify with because again, that's what they're basically telling you, and you have a very clear solution to that problem. So again, these are kind of just general questions on how to get the meeting started. But the main goal here is once you get them talking through them answering their questions and that back and forth, you can then bring up a presentation or a demo. We've done both in the past. They both work really well, but the main goal here is to keep it short and sweet and simple as possible. We're not trying to show them the entire platform, potentially not even showing them a demo at all. There's a lot of agencies that have told us that they found a lot of success just by showing maybe two or three different slides that again address the benefits within the context of the answers that they're giving from these questions over here. So these could be things like quantifying the savings or the money that they could potentially make in a way that this business owner would understand. And we go into a little bit of depth on that over here, where, for example, if someone is telling you that they're struggling to, they're paying so much for support and they are struggling keeping up with all their support tickets, you could position that in a way where you ask them, what are you currently paying your VA, that is, or your employee that's answering these questions, and then simply put it down into a math equation that says, okay, well, if you're currently paying about 3,000 a month for your customer support VA, and if these AI agents could help answer those questions so that way no one is having to submit a support ticket in the first place, that would reduce their work by about 80% or make them 80% more efficient, which would give them a raw savings in per month, so to speak, based off of what they're currently paying over here. And that's where you can show them that, hey, if you pay us $500, you'll essentially save $2,200 a month. And obviously, this is an example. You can kind of swing this in many different ways. But the idea here is, again, show the tangible benefits of what this can do in a way that they are familiar with. The kind of the end steps here, answering questions and objection handling. This is something that you'll start to, again, like you'll find your flow as the more calls that you do over time. But essentially, similar to the first steps where you're asking them questions and they are kind of selling them themselves on it. The same kind of thing is done here, where if someone's asking, well, like, why should I go with you guys as an agency versus somebody else or doing it myself? There's kind of two big points that we always like to mention especially when it comes to AI agents and selling AI, which is the first is 99% of business owners want to focus on their business. They don't want to have to worry about some of these other things that are associated with their business, essentially. And that even goes for things like building and maintaining their website. Today, it's now easier than ever to build your own website, but yet many, many businesses still look towards the quote unquote experts to help them build and maintain the websites for their business. The same thing goes along with AI agents. We found that, yes, while many people use things like ChatGPT in their daily life as this technology progresses, people are still not familiar with how to write prompts effectively or again, manage and maintain these services and these products and services for a business. And so you as the AI agency owner, you are setting yourself up as the authority figure in this scenario for this business owner. So they're going to look to you as the expert to help them manage that service for them. And then finally, the end here for kind of closing the sale. This typically will be where someone moves into the stage of starting a credit card trial. And the benefit of using this alongside Stammer AI is you're not trying to essentially hard sell them on this call right here. Now, you can, and a lot of people do, where, hey, pay us while we're still on this call. That is a very common tactic for a lot larger sales, to be honest. And we do have agencies running these types of deals where they're charging 15, sometimes $17,000 as a upfront building fee. And then on the back end, it has a monthly or quarterly or yearly subscription. So it really depends on how you want to build your offer. And that's why this is part 3 of this kind of large stage, because you want to start first by building out your offer and figuring out what's going to work. But you'll quickly realize that like once you start doing some calls here, you'll start to refresh your offer based on the feedback that you're getting from the people that are on the calls with you. And this is exactly how we've updated and optimized the platform ourselves for you as AI agencies, because these agencies have given us this feedback that says, hey, we want, a customer is interested in working with us, but they want to do a free trial without doing a credit card, or we want to be able to offer, X amount of usage. So that way they can start testing it and seeing that value before they become a paying customer. So there's a lot of different ways, and again, I keep kind of coming back to this main idea of when you start making these reps and doing these meetings, you'll start to figure out what's going to work best for you and your AI agency. Drew, is there anything that you want to add onto this, since you're very close to this world as well?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing actually happens in the first couple of phases for the meeting. So when we're setting up a calendar and they're booking meetings, we have the opportunity to ask them some qualifying questions. Do they have a budget for this?
Ah,
Is AI an actual solution to a problem they're trying to solve? Because if an AI agent that you guys are selling is not a potential solution to a problem, the odds of you making the sale will be almost zero because you're just not selling the right product to the right problem. And so qualification is something that we do pretty heavily on the front end. For us, right, we want to know if somebody has the time, effort, budget to be able to invest into building a business like Stammer and their white label version of it. So for you guys, the problem finding phase in the very beginning is something that's going to be super important. And, if you're doing a 30-ish minute sales call, you should be focusing 15 to maybe 20 minutes on trying to figure out exactly what problem they're trying to solve, how big of a problem it actually is, and whether or not what you have can solve the problem that you're finding. Now, clients are not going to come out and just tell you what their problem is. You're going to have to do some searching for it. So there are some questions that you can ask to kind of bring up not only what the problem they are having, but we also want to focus on the impact that that problem has, because the client might know the problem that they have and are trying to solve it, but they're not understanding that maybe it's, $100,000 problem to their business. And the minute that they understand the level of that, their urgency to be able to solve the problem, speeds up the timeline pretty heavily. So focusing that is honestly the largest part of the conversation. The demo that you do afterwards to make sure that the tech works the way that we think that it should is arguably the easier part because you've already figured out what the problem is, and that's an easy transition to show them exactly how your solution solves that problem for them.
very good points. Yeah, I completely glossed over that that aspect. And for most like scheduling and booking platforms, they allow for you to put in a questionnaire or a form that the user would have to fill out or answer in order to be able to book the meeting. So that is where you can kind of put in a lot of those questions to help qualify people on your end before you essentially kind of, quote unquote, waste time on a meeting with a lead that you might already know is not going to be a good lead.
Yeah. And it helps just to get the conversation going too, because you have something to work with.
Yeah.
It's much easier for me to go, hey, I see you're struggling with this. How can we help and what's the impact of that? Versus like, hey, tell me about your business and your life. That's a much lengthier conversation that just doesn't result in moving forward the way you want to.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point.
That will also eliminate a lot of objections that you face. Because if somebody tells you, hey, I have no time and I have no money in the very beginning, the odds of you working through the objection of I have no time and have no money are very little. And so it just doesn't make sense to move forward with those people. But if you know that in the beginning they're open to it and it just is a matter of finding the right solution, that's where you can kind of handle those objections up front. So that way, after you do the demo and you get to the part where you have to ask for the sale, it's a little bit smoother and definitely right to asking for the sale for a credit card trial or something like that is a little bit of a softer ask, which more people are open to,
Yeah.
rather than asking for the 15 or 20K right up front. Now, a lot you can do that as well, and if you know how to objection handle and all that, and if you can be patient enough while the client runs downstairs and gets their credit card, you can absolutely handle that as well. But the credit card trial, from what we have seen, results in a higher conversion rate, and then it's just a matter of integrating it with their system and continuing to see value from it.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. And another thing I'll add on top of that is when the when you have that initial questionnaire form, a lot of people will now utilize that information. Like, so for example, they'll ask, what's your website? What industry are you in? Yada, yada. And based off of those answers and that information that they provide, you can then go and create a customized demo bot or agent for that client specifically. So this is one of the ways that we've heard from agencies that have been super successful where they'll create like a template and then they'll preload information in from the client's website. And then that way, when they're doing this presentation and demo, it's already hyper personalized to their business and their information and the solution that they're looking for. So yeah, that's I think a good place to kind of wrap it up for today. Is anybody or Tim, you can drop if you want. Can you go and start the support call?
Yeah, yeah. Let me head over there. If anybody needs
Okay.
to join, just feel free to join us.
Yeah, and then if there's does anybody have any questions or comments on any of this? Happy to stay on for a couple more minutes and answer any questions. All good today. Cool. Yeah, definitely have, setting up one of these pipelines might be daunting to get started, but it is super useful, especially when you're just thinking of like everything from an organization point of view. So I definitely do recommend it, even if you only have like one or two leads in your pipeline, because it will scale quickly and it will become overwhelming. That being said, like I've used Notion or I've used Trello for years now to manage a lot of this. Trello has a lot of good integrations with Zapier, but if you want to take things definitely to the next level, using something like a CRM like GHL is going to be a good bet. Cool. All right. Well, I think unless there's any other questions, like always, all the links and everything for all of these mind maps will be linked in the school community, which will be linked down below. So feel free to join and get those downloads. And best of luck with your sales meetings. Hopefully it goes well. And next week we'll be going more in depth on these clients and client acquisition strategies. So be sure to sign up and join for next week as well. All right. Well, that'll do it for today. Thanks everyone for joining and watching, and we'll see you guys next week. Take care.